Shubho Shokal, good morning. Welcome to all distinguished guests, honorable delegates and participants. Today is the second session of 22nd Ufam Koi and 17th ASU workshop. Our first session is on gynecological ultrasound. Hopefully, you will also enjoy this session. Our first presenter is Professor Sim Hook Kim from South Korea. Already you have enjoyed his lecture yesterday. He will deliver his lecture on ovarian teratoma, mystery of ultrasound findings. His lecture on ovarian teratoma, mystery of ultrasound findings. Professor Kim, please.
Good morning. So today is the second day, and I'm pleased to have a first talk in this second day. Happy ovarian teratoma. Probably all of you have an experience of making diagnosis of ovarian teratoma using ultrasound, because it is the most common ovarian neoplasm in premenopausal women. And laparoscopic removal is a standard surgical management, and usually ultrasound is the initial imaging to detect the tumor. And usually we use CT or MRI to confirm the diagnosis. Understanding of ultrasound finding is important in this diagnosis and differential diagnosis of mature cystic teratoma. In the literature, it said that mature cystic teratoma typically appears as cystic mass with heterogeneous hyperechogenicity like this one. So probably many of you think that it's quite easy to make a diagnosis, and but some more experienced people said, oh, many times it is not easy. But sometimes it's easy, but sometimes it is not easy. Probably if you see mass like that, cystic mass, very hyperechoic area, and the hypoechoic heterogeneous area, probably your first diagnosis is ovarian cystic teratoma, because the hallmark is that mature cystic teratoma is a fact, and mature cystic teratoma usually has a hyperechogenicity, and probably many of you think that fatty portion would be hyperechoic. But it's the same as it used to be before. And if you look at that mass more carefully and compare that with the CT finding, probably you will see that this portion is this portion, probably calcification, and this hyperechoic portion is probably the soft tissue portion, and probably that fatty portion here is probably the least hyperechoic portion. So probably when you see that image only, probably many of you think that that is a fatty portion, but in fact this is not fatty portion, this is a fatty portion. So we should know that fatty portion is not always hyperechoic. That is a very important thing we should keep in mind when you are making diagnosis of ovarian cystic teratoma. Another description in the literature is mature cystic teratoma commonly appears as a unilocular cystic mass, like those 4 different cases, we find internal echoes. Very different degree of find internal echoes in this unilocular cystic mass. Okay, so let's look. How many of you think that all these are mature cystic teratoma? Please raise your hand. How many of you think that none of that is a mature cystic teratoma? No one raised hand. It's very difficult issue, but in fact, in those 4 cases, all these are mature cystic teratoma completely composed of the homogeneous fluid band. So it may be very difficult to make a diagnosis of mature cystic teratoma. In those cases, we should consider the other conditions like endometriosis or the hemorrhagic ovarian cyst. So it's in fact that all these adverse morphology of ovarian cystic teratoma so various because of that variety of findings is really not easy. So today I would like to share my experience with you with this variety, various appearance of the ovarian mature cystic teratoma. So let's think about the echogenicity. Echogenicity is described by this famous people in the history of ultrasound. In his book, The Theory of Ultrasound, and the ultrasound tissue echogenicity, ultrasound tissue interactions that produce echogenicity on 4 mechanisms. This absorption, reflection, scattering, and refraction. Among those 4, reflection is the most important part. And we are seeing the echogenicity in using medical ultrasound. And if we look at the ultrasound tissue interaction more carefully in reflection, that reflection occurs in interface of 2 different tissues. Every tissue has a acoustic impedance. And this is the equation producing intensity reflection coefficient. It means that how is that interface reflect the ultrasound well. And important thing is not depend on the acoustic impedance itself, but it depends on the difference of acoustic impedance. That is a very important thing we should understand whenever we are trying to make a diagnosis of mature cystic teratoma using ultrasound. Not acoustic impedance itself, but difference. That's why sometimes fat appears very hyperechoic, sometimes fat appears very hypoechoic. So that's not because of the acoustic impedance, but because of the difference of acoustic impedance in that interface. So let's think about the typical finding of mature cystic teratoma. One is a dermoid block. This dermoid block is like this one. The dermoid block has a typical appearance, a tip of iceberg sign like this one. And this is a typical example of tip of iceberg sign. And that sign was reported long time ago. In these 2 papers, used that terminology, tip of iceberg sign. And these are images published in the paper. And this is another case showing a tip of iceberg sign because of that dermoid block. And if we compare the ultrasound finding with MRI, here's the dermoid block, and here's a fatty fluid around this dermoid block. It appears as a hypoechoic. That is not hyperechoic in this tissue. Hyperechoic portion is not fat, it's solely the dermoid block portion. Another typical finding of mature cystic teratoma is so-called dot and dash sign. This is dot and dash, and this is also finding, and here are many dots and dashes. It's also called downward mesh. And if we compare this ultrasound findings with this MRI, you can see that the mass is composed of this fatty fluid, and within the fatty fluid there are so many particles appearing as dot and dash. Usually they're there, and the epithelium, disconnected epithelium. Another case showing downward clock here, tip of iceberg sign, and dot and dashes here. And this is the MRI finding. Also you can see that large downward clock and dot and dash within the fatty fluid. Another example showing interesting finding of dot and dashes. Here are find equidensity within this system mass, and there are some linear dashes and dots in this mass, and this is an MRI finding showing that dot and dash within the fatty fluid. So two typical findings of mature cystic teratoma is the tip of iceberg, and the other one is dot and dash. The other thing you should remember is that fat is not always hyperechoic. Next finding we can see, often see in mature cystic teratoma is fat fluid level, like this one. You can see some, here's the mass. You can see the fluid level here. This part is equidensity is much lower than that part. Probably it will be difficult which part is fat, this part or this part. It can be any part can be fat. It does not depend on of course, the impedance of fat, but depends on the difference of course, the impedance, the mixture of fat. This is CT. Now you can see that this hypoechoic portion is fat here, and this hyperechoic fat portion is this hyperechoic portion is this non-fatty fluid portion. Yes, I know. It does not. Okay, so there is some technical difficulty, but anyway, I'll continue. And here is another mass, system mass with the fat fluid level. And now you can see that the difference of equidensity in this portion and that portion. And this is CT scan. And now you can see that this hyperequidensity of this fatty portion and the hypoequidensity of this non-fatty portion. So again, fatty portion can be either hyperechoic or hypoechoic. That is very important message. Another case, having the fat fluid level here, and the protein ball, floating tail ball is around here, and if you see that fatty portion, the aquagenicity is quite high, and if you see that non-fatty portion, red color, the aquagenicity is quite low, and in between there is a floating tail ball. Another case showing the every findings of typical mature cystic carcinoma, tip of iceberg sign, and dot and dash sign, and that polygon level. Now you can easily see those findings, and you can easily compare the aquagenicity of the fatty portion and non-fatty portion. So these are the typical findings of the mature cystic carcinoma, and aquagenicity is very mysterious aquagenicity. And there are many other variable findings like this central fatty core. Now you can see the cystic mass, aquagenic portion, and some more aquagenic area inside there, and that is due to that mass containing fat and non-fatty bone, and inside again the fatty portion. So finding is very variable. Another very unusual finding in this mass is a very dense echo with very dense posterior shadowing, and this is due to that the hair balls within the fatty fluid. And if you see this non-fatty, the blue color portion is aquagenicity is quite low. So anyway, this case has a variable aquagenicity from this dense aquagenicity to gelatin, and also this hypoechoic non-fatty portion. Another example of various aquagenicity in mature cystic carcinoma. Sometimes mature cystic carcinoma appears quite solid, not cystic, like this case. If you see that, if you encounter this case in your daily practice, probably it will be difficult to make a diagnosis of mature cystic carcinoma. But if you see the mass carefully, you can see the peripheral hypoechoic ring around this solid-looking mass. It means that this portion is probably filling some cystic mass. That is very important sign, and in fact this hypoechoic periphery is due to this fatty fluid around this solid-looking teratoma, and this is raw specimen, and you can see the space between the solid-looking area and capsule, and this space is filled with this fatty fluid in this mass. And this is one example of solid-looking teratoma. Another example of solid-looking teratoma, similar appearance and ultrasound. In this case, this peripheral portion is composed of non-fatty fluid. This central portion is composed of fatty fluid. So it's totally different from prior case. It's now the non-fatty portion is in the periphery. Prior case, fatty portion is in periphery. So again, very variable. So similar appearance, solid-looking mass, now the peripheral portion is hyperechoic, now the peripheral portion is a fat. So again, very variable. And now if you see that case, large mass, this is a mass composed of this aquagenic portion and very hypoechoic cystic portion, and some dense echo with posterior shadowing. Probably you can easily make a diagnosis of mature cystic carcinoma in this case, because that has a solid portion of dense shadowing. And but now you have a difficulty in guessing which part is fat and which part is the non-fatty fluid. And now if we compare each part, these part, yellow asterisk, is a fatty fluid portion, and this red arrow portion is a more pure pure fat area is a the fat suppression in this area, and these dense equity shadowing is probably calcification area, and this area is a non-fatty fluid, very high signal intensity and tip-to-weight images, and so probably I think the one message I gave you in this talk is that the diagnosis of microcystic teratoma is not easy many times because it's so variable. Because it's so variable in ultrasound findings, it's so variable in CT and MRI findings, and it's so variable in gross specimen findings. So always when you are making a diagnosis of microcystic teratoma using ultrasound, be careful because the finding is very variable. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Kim, for your excellent and informative presentation. Now I am requesting to Professor Kokle from India for his lecture. He is going to deliver his presentation on different presentations in endometriosis. Different presentations in endometriosis. Hopefully you will enjoy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk about just one spectrum of findings that we find in endometriosis. Endometriosis is described as the presence of functional endometrial tissue in locations outside the endometrial cavity. So whenever you find endometrial tissue outside its normal place, that's endometriosis. It's a common condition affecting somewhere between 5 and 60% of women of reproductive age. But the way they present may be totally different. A lot of them, almost 1/3, are asymptomatic. Some of them come with dysmenorrhea. Some are being investigated for subfertility. The most common symptom is pain. It may be in the form of dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia, or pain during passing urine or stool. The complaint may be menorrhagia, metrorrhagia, or infertility as we see. The problem is that endometrial tissue outside the uterus responds to the menstrual cycle hormones the same way the tissue inside the uterus responds. It swells, it thickens, then sheds to mark the beginning of the next cycle, and this goes on and on and on. The blood that is shed from endometrial tissue in the abdominal cavity has no place to go. Like uterus, it can't come out, so it remains there, resulting in pools of blood causing an inflammatory reaction that forms scar tissue. Resultant fibrosis, nodular lesions, and adhesions distort the anatomy. That's what happens when there is endometrium outside the uterine cavity. So the stigmata of endometriosis that we are going to look for are endometriomas, adhesions, adenomyosis, and distant endometrial implants. Now, ovary is the commonest site for endometrioma. Most of the endometriomas, they are pseudocapsules that form by invagination of ovarian cortex, which gets sealed off by adhesions. The cysts develop from repeated cycles of hemorrhage. The cyst wall is usually thick and fibrous because it is a pseudo wall. It is formed by inflammatory tissue around this collection. And these cysts, they contain a thick, dark fluid containing degenerate blood products of long standing. That's what gives them their typical chocolate colors. That's why we call them chocolate cysts. So the typical appearance for an ovarian endometrioma is of a unilocular cyst with slightly thick walls, and because of the degenerate products of blood inside, it gives the fluid a uniform fine ecogenicity throughout the cyst. And that is different from what we see in a recent hemorrhage within a particular cyst that is more coarse. So we have these diffuse low-level ecos throughout the cyst, and that's the commonest finding for it. Ovarian endometrioma, almost 80 to 95% we see this cyst. But sometimes you can have small, tiny little loculations along the cyst wall, or you might get some calcific nodules on the wall or within the fluid content of that cyst. And then there are certain atypical appearances, and that brings in the problem, and that's what Professor Bhuiyan referred to, that a lot of times only on morphology it's difficult unless you resort to doing a CT or MR to differentiate between an endometrioma, ovarian endometrioma, and a mature cystic carcinoma, because the appearances might be similar. The fluid in an endometrioma might be fairly ecogenic rather than the low-level ecos. Or it might sometimes, because of the recent hemorrhages, it might also give you a fluid level, very much as you see in a mature cystic carcinoma that can happen. Or if there is a recent hemorrhage in a long-standing endometrioma, you might find a floating clot, and that might give you that a ball or the tip of the iceberg sign. Sometimes very confusing with mature cystic carcinoma, unless you have some other evidence to suggest that there is a endometriosis. Because these are pseudocysts and because they are produced by repeated hemorrhages, the cysts might have fluid of different ecogenicity because they are of different vintage, and therefore the fluid in different cysts might appear of different ecogenicity, but they are all the same. Sometimes you might find this acoustic streaming artifact because of the acoustic energy, the particles within that cyst, and that might help you differentiate it from a mature cystic carcinoma, because that does not happen in mature cystic carcinoma. But the same finding can happen in a follicular cyst, and therefore this is not very, very characteristic for an endometrioma. The walls of the endometrioma are usually not very thick, but you can find some small nodules, some deposits on the wall, or if the patient has become pregnant, there may be decidulization of endometrioma, and then you might find some thick soft tissue within the wall of that endometrioma. If you use color Doppler, you will find a smooth capsular vascularity, because of course it's an inflammatory lesion. And you might find some vascularity within the wall, or what appear to be septae. They are actually different loculations of the inflammatory endometrioma, and these loculations may also sometimes show color signals on color Doppler. If you happen to do a spectral sampling, you might get low velocity waveform because it is inflammatory vascularity. And sometimes people confuse this because you get them in the septi, you get low distance waveform. People might think that they are dealing with a neoplastic lesion instead of an endometrioma. Because the endometrioma may involve the tubes, you might get tubo-ovarian masses involving a ovarian endometrioma and a tube that is blocked because of adhesions, and therefore you might get anechoic fluid within the tube, or it might actually be a hematosalpinx because of endometriosis, and you might get more ecogenic fluid in that tube. But the typical bottle root appearance is a telltale sign that there is the tube is also involved in this particular mass. Sometimes the appearance might be confusing. This patient actually was referred with a query that we are only dealing with a peripheral mass or a broad ligament myoma, but we can use color Doppler to demonstrate that this actually is an cyst with ecogenic fluid inside the clarity. And on the other hand, what looks like a cyst adjacent to the uterus with very fine diffuse mucus inside, which again came diagnosed as an endometriotic cyst. But you use color Doppler because they are not the evenly dispersed fine tissues that we see in endometrioma, but they more like fine septae within the color Doppler shows that there is vascularity inside. So you can use color Doppler to differentiate what looks like a solid lesion from endometrioma. Particularly brain-colored fibroids might sometimes get confused with an endometrioma, which is more ecogenic. This was a patient who was under follow-up. She was a known endometriosis under medical management, and this time we noticed that there is a lot of what looks like solid tissues within this endometrioma, and you need to do color Doppler to figure out whether this is an adherent clot or this in fact is solid tissue, and the vascularity tells us that this is not a clot. This is definitely a new growth within that endometrioma. So there is a small incidence of malignancy going on endometrioma, and this turned out to be endometrioid and clear cell carcinoma. They can develop in pre-existing endometriotic cysts, although the incidence is not very good. So how good is ultrasound at diagnosing endometriotic cysts? Reports vary from very high accurate with a positive predictive value of 96% to moderately accurate of 65-55%. The differences in these varying reports are mainly due to different study designs, ultrasound operator, and to a certain extent equipment that was used. Since the endometric cysts are not true cysts, the result depends on pathologic sampling, etc., exactly where you are taking the sample. The next pattern is of adenomyosis, where the endometriotic tissue has gone into the myometrium and not outside the uterus. So the presence of endometrial glandular tissue and stroma within the myometrium, that is associated with smooth muscle hyperplasia, that incites a reactive hyperplasia in the muscle, and that produces a inhomogeneous tissue structure. So the uterus typically becomes large and globular. There is diffusely heterogeneous ecostructure to the myometrium, and usually we find there is an asymmetrical thickening as vis-a-vis anterior and posterior myometrium. On one side may be thicker than the other side, and we get hypoechoic areas or actually frank cysts within the myometrium. And more recently, following the pioneering studies on MR, we are also trying to find out the endometrial myometrial border and junctional zone abnormalities on volume also. So typically the uterus becomes globular, and what I have found is more often you find that the anteroposterior and transverse diameter of the uterus becomes more or less same. That is a telltale sign. Very often there is asymmetrical thickening, so the posterior myometrium has become 3-4 times thicker as compared to the anterior myometrium, and it has become inhomogeneous, and there is acoustic shadowing, and this shadowing it originates not from echogenic foci as we usually see them. You see shadowing behind reflectors. And here they are not very good reflectors, but you still get shadowing. And it is typically in the form of stripes, so people have called it striped shadowing or Venetian blind shadowing, and that is a telltale sign that we're dealing with adenomyosis in this particular situation. Or more frankly, if the lesion is well developed, you might actually see cystic areas on ultrasound. MR is much more sensitive to detect these tiny cystic areas in myometrium as compared to ultrasound. So unless they become of a certain size or ultrasound, we are not able to really see them. And then the next type that we see is a deep infiltrative endometriosis, where the endometrial tissue has gone much beyond the confines of the uterus outside, and it has got implanted on the surrounding structures. So that's what we have to look at. So after the ovary, the common sites of involvement are the uterine ligaments, posterior broad ligament, uterosacral ligament, pelvic cul-de-sac, pelvic peritoneum, fallopian tubes, and the bowel, that's the rectosigmoid as well. When there is deep pelvic endometriosis, it causes distortion of anatomy. There is evidence of adhesions, and you might actually find focal thickened deposits of the inflammatory reaction that the endometriotic deposits have caused. So we look for deep pelvic endometriosis by testing for uterine mobility, ovarian mobility, bladder wall and vesicouterine pouch, pouch of Douglas, the rectovaginal septum, and the rectum and rectosigmoid. In fact, now we follow the IDEA protocol. The International Deep Pelvic Endometriosis Consensus Conference defined a very well systematic approach towards the deep pelvic endometriosis, and that's what we normally will do. So we use our probe for palpation of pelvic organs. We try to displace the uterus, and you can see that this uterus is fixed. It's not as mobile as we normally see, so it tells us that there are significant pelvic adhesions around the uterus. We look for the adnexal movement as well, and you can appreciate that I can move this ovary away from the uterus very nicely when I palpate with my probe, but I can't move this ovary away from the uterus. So the left ovary is adherent to the uterus. That's telling me that there is adhesion in the pelvis. In this case, both the ovaries are adherent to the uterus. I can't move them away from the uterine wall. So when both ovaries are prolapsed in the pouch of Douglas and they are in contact with each other, we call them kissing ovary sign, and it's a very strong indicator of pelvic adhesions and considered as a marker for presence of endometriosis, and that's visible on transabdominal ultrasound also. You don't really need to do a transvaginal. On a transabdominal ultrasound, you find both ovaries prolapsed in the pouch of Douglas and in contact with each other. That's what we call the ovary sign. Or if you are doing an internal scan, you can actually test for mobility and see that not only they are adherent to the uterus, but they are adherent to each other as well. And then we go on to look at the bowel wall to see if there is any bowel wall adhesions or deposits on the bowel. And typically we'll see the tri-layered signature of the bowel wall, which is smooth with a hypoechoic muscularis, a hyperechoic submucosa, and a hypoechoic mucosa. And we can follow it up right from the abdominal canal to the rectum to the rectosigmoid junction. We can go and examine the bowel wall very nicely behind the uterus and the vagina. And you can find these deposits with reactionary nodular lesions. They may be focal nodular lesions, or they may be in the form of elongated plaques, thickening a focal area on the bowel wall. So here is a patient with dysmenorrhea and severe pain in perineal region, and there was an endometrioma in the ovary that we can see nicely. And when we go and look at the bowel wall, we see this laminar plaque-like lesion with adhesions to the adnexa there. This is a deep endometriosis, and the Doppler will show inflammatory vascularity. Another patient with chronic pain, we find evidence of endometriosis. Both ovaries are adherent to the uterus, and when we examine the bowel, the rectosigmoid, we find there is a plaque with adhesion to the lower part of the body of the uterus and the rectosigmoid junction here. And then rarely we might get distant implantations of endometriosis. They can happen in abdominal wall. They have been described in chest wall, gastrointestinal tract, GE tract, and soft tissues, often in areas of abdominal surgical scarring. So cesarean scar implants are fairly common, and that if you use a linear probe, you will see these painful areas in the scar has hypoechoic focal lesions with some vascularity of color Doppler, and if you do biopsy, you will show, you will demonstrate endometriotic tissue in this lesion, confirming that they are endometriotic deposits within the cesarean scar. Sometimes they can be really big, hypertrophic, and then it becomes difficult only without biopsy to differentiate between desmoids or endometriotic deposits in the abdominal scar. Instead of the abdominal wall scar, endometriotic deposits can happen within the uterine scar as well, and then it creates a very severely painful condition. This patient came with severe dysmenorrhea and dysphoria. You can see the cesarean scar is fairly prominent, and that has the repeated bleeding has produced a large encysted collection within the wall, anterior wall of the uterus itself. That swells up every time, causing severe dysmenorrhea and dysphoria in this patient. And very rarely you might get implants into the bladder. They are also iatrogenic following cesarean sections, and the patient typically presents with hematuria. The patient was getting investigated for hematuria, and then when we did the scan, and we found this appearance of a small plaque lesion just opposite the uterine scar, and we asked the patient, and she comes out with this history that the hematuria is cyclical. Actually, it's not a hematuria from the urinary tract. It's actually a cyclical bleeding that's coming back from this. Another patient with dysmenorrhea, dysuria, and hematuria, and we find this plaque-like lesion on the posterior bladder wall, which is adherent to the uterine scar, and then we can go and do an internal examination to find out this big endometriotic deposit there on the posterior bladder wall of the surgery. So how does TDUS perform in detecting deep pelvic endometriosis? Sensitivity is about 85 to 98%, in the ranges of 90%, so that's fairly good. So I conclude by saying that the commonest findings are endometriotic cysts. They are actually pseudocysts, not true cysts. They usually are unilocular with smooth wall, with fairly homogeneous, evenly spread low-level echos. There is no solid component. There will be regions, and the appearance does not change. The simplest thing to do is to call the patient back after the next cycle or after 2 months, and it looks more or less exactly the same as it looked from cycle to cycle, and then we can easily differentiate it from follicular cysts with hemorrhage vis-a-vis endometrioma. For deep pelvic endometriosis, a careful internal testing for mobility of pelvic organs, examine the rectosigmoid for wall thickening, and look for focal plaque-like lesions, and usually we will be able to find that there are deposits on the rectosigmoid. Thank you very much.
Dr. Sabrina Yoshi, Dr. Maria Palkin. Then tea break. You are requesting to come here time ladies. Now third and patient session.
Hello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hello.
lasciando solo dire. No, ti distribuire.
Now,